Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm really grateful to be here today to talk about FACETS. FACETS it's a big, long name, really. It's Fairfax Area Christian Emergency and Transitional Services, which is a mouthful. But what it distills down to is FACETS. And I think it's really fitting because there are many facets to homelessness and there are many facets to volunteering and helping. And those are two things that I would love to talk to you about today. 30 years ago, Linda Wimpy, our founder, stood in a church, stood in front of a congregation like you all. In fact, this church, StAndrewsBurke Episcopal, was one of the founding churches behind FACETS. Linda had been aware of the homelessness problem in Fairfax County, and that's something that sometimes people don't really think happens in Fairfax County. It's a pretty wealthy county, and you don't like to think that there are people in the corners, in the shadows, in the woods, but Linda saw them, and she knew that she needed to help. And at that time, homeless people were living, when they had shelter, they were living in some pretty awful little motels along Route 50 and in the area. And while they had a place to sleep at night, they had no opportunity to make food or get food. And the first thing Linda said was, let's feed them. And she put together something called our Hot Meals program. And you all were founding members and are members today of our Hot Meals program. Hot Meals delivers food, a hot meal, every night of the week and twice on Sundays. So it makes sure that people who live along Route 50 in areas we know where there are homeless people have the opportunity to get a meal, and usually they get a couple of meals. You all are so very gracious in being able to make sure they have more than one meal to take with them. And that can sometimes be the start of a whole new beginning for them. That person who reaches out a hand and hands them a dinner could change the world for them. And we want to thank you so much for the work you do with Hot Meals. And that's just one facet of what we do. Hot Meals make sure that people are fed. We also want to make sure that people have somewhere to go when the weather is bad, and that's our Hypothermia Program. And hypothermia is another. You are one of our founding churches for hypothermia. And now it's pretty hot out, and we look outside and we know the fall and the winter are coming, and that's a busy time for us at FACETS because we're preparing for hypothermia. The Hypothermia Program means that there's somewhere for people to go at night in the cold. During the day, there are day shelters and libraries and places where they can find to be, but at night they're very much alone. And we make sure that by working with communities like you all, that they have a place to lay their head at night, they have a place to wash up, to have a hot meal and a meal the next morning, and it refreshes them and it enables them to go on and take on the next day, which is a huge gift. The hypothermia centers are also one of the first places that we sometimes will be able to make a connection with these people. FACETS we want to help the whole person. We want to meet that homeless person where they are right now, whether they're living in the woods, whether they are a family that's in a bad situation, whether it's a woman who suffered some domestic violence and needs somewhere new to go, to be safe. We meet them where they are, and often a hypothermia center is a place where we will get to meet them first. It's a place where we can have a case manager meet with them, find out a little bit more about what they need, where their help needs to be, and then work with them towards a much brighter future. I want to share with you the story of a gentleman whose life changed profoundly because of hypothermia, because of that one moment in time. Gary was a man who had served his country. He had served in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam veteran, and as much as he had seen in his time in the service, nothing could prepare him for what homelessness looked like for him. And it didn't start in a big way. It started with a life-changing event. It started with a divorce. It started with losing his farm. He ended up with his truck. That's all he had. So he lived in his truck. He drove his truck from place to place. He was in several states. During the day, he tried to find places to go, like libraries and shelters. But at night, he slept in his truck in all kinds of weather. He had a family, but he didn't want to share what was going on with his family because he felt so badly about the fact that he had fallen so far. So he lived on his own for 10 years in his truck, going from place to place. And one night, it was a terribly cold winter night like we do get here, And he knew he had to come in out of the cold. And he had heard about our hypothermia centers, and he came to a hypothermia center. And that was where he was able to meet a FACETS case manager. And the people at the hypothermia center welcomed him. The case manager saw that he was actually very sick. And we were able to get him into a hospital. He had very bad pneumonia. He may not have lasted very much longer out there on the streets. And once we were able to get him healthy, we were able to move him into one of our permanent supportive houses. They're called Linda's Gateway, after our founder, Linda Whitney, because they are often a gateway to a brighter future for these men. And once he was there, he had an address. And we take an address for granted, but when you don't have an address, you don't have access to anything. You don't have things that he was entitled to as a veteran for having served his country. He did not have access to. So we were able to get him an address, which got him some Social Security benefits, which got him his veterans benefits that he was entitled to. It also gave him the strength he needed to reach out to his sister, who he had not contacted in over 10 years. Once he had his sister in his corner too, he was able to access more services. He was able to share his story with more people. And the Veterans Association reached out to him, and now he had a whole other group of people who were in his corner too. And today he's doing great. He has a place to call his own. He's in one of our affordable housing units. He has a relationship with his family again. He's healthy. He has friends that love him, and he has a new future. And that all started with one night in a hypothermia center. So when you all help with hypothermia, you are changing the future in very meaningful ways, and we are so grateful for what you do. The other way that we help, another facet of homelessness, is we like to prevent homelessness now. That was something that was Linda's dream when she started way, way back 30 years ago, was to prevent homelessness from happening. So we work with people when they're identified to us, when we find out about them through social services, that are on the brink, they're on that edge, and we are able to step in, and it might be help with a month's rent. Maybe they're back on their rent a little bit. It might be helping with some utility bills. It might be helping them find a new home or get ready for a new home with employment opportunities. So we look at the whole person, the whole family, and we have a family group of people that are just basing on homelessness prevention, because if we can stop that, we can change the future too. And that's another facet of what we do. For those families who have found themselves unfortunately homeless, we have a new program. It's just 2 years old. It's our Next Steps facility on the Route 1 corridor in Alexandria. And it's a family shelter, but it's not what you traditionally think of a family shelter. It's a place where we can house families as a family. We have 18 apartment units that we rent, and that we're able to place them in as a family while we help them get back on their feet. Our plan is for them not to be there for more than 30 or 60 days, because in that time, we're going to help them get ready for a new job. We're going to help them find new housing. We're going to help their kids get ready for school. And then we can send them on their way and help them in the future so that they stay housed. That's our plan, is that we prevent it and that people stay housed once they get out there. Really wonderful families, like the Kapoor family that are working hard. They're new to the country and they needed a hand up. Not a handout, but a hand up. And with them, we were able to help their children with after-school homework help, as the parents were working so hard. We were able to find them affordable housing. We were able to help them with English as a second language. It's so hard to be in a country where you can't speak the language. All of those things are possible because of the support of caring people like you. We couldn't do what we do at FACETS without the support of people as volunteers. There are so many ways that you can volunteer and you can help with FACETS. You can help with your hot meals program. They always are grateful to have extra hands to help with food prep and handing out the food along the route. It's a wonderful family opportunity too. There's not a lot of ways that a family can volunteer and see something so meaningful right in front of them as to help with a hot meals run. You can help with our hypothermia program, which is wonderful at your church. I'm sure they need more and more people to help make sure these people have a comfortable night. You can help if you want to help in other ways. We use volunteers in administration over at our main office. Volunteers answer our phones. Volunteers help us get information into our database. So if you have IT skills or you like to talk to people on the phone, we have a spot where you can help us too. If you're a group of kids, a kids group, a children's group, a youth group at a church, our vans need washing all the time. We have these great vans, but they get used all the time, and we don't always have time to get them cleaned out and shined up. And again, it seems like a little thing, but when you are homeless and you can step into a really clean, warm van to be driven to where you're going to be staying the night, that's a big deal. So there's so many ways that that you can help us help even more people. And we're going to be in the parish area afterwards. We're happy to chat with you about what we do. And I want to thank you all so very much for everything you've done up to this point. What Linda Wimpy started 30 years ago continues today. It grows bigger and bigger, and it's only through the help of people like you. So thank you.